Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to this monthly webinar for the LGMA constituency towards COP30. And my name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLA Local Government and Sustainability. And this session is designed and delivered in our capacity as the focal point, LGMA focal point to the UNFCCC. As our usual practice, we will just let a couple of more seconds for our colleagues to settle, before kicking off our session. So we appreciate your patience with us, and we'll get back shortly. Good. I think now we are reached to our level of participation for this round. Once again, thanks for joining us. As our usual practice, just to remind ourselves that these sessions are publicly announced in ICLA's channels and the LGMA website. So we have partners and colleagues who are not necessarily members of the constituency, but they are engaging here in their observer and partner capacity. The recording and the presentation of this webinar will be made available afterwards, and you will receive the link. And we usually run around 35 minutes of a presentation where sometimes we have partners joining us, depending on the agenda. And then we open the floor for questions and answers and clarifications or additional inputs. And if there are any burning issues, feel free to type it in the chat box or in the Q&A session. I think for the moment we are using mainly chat box. For our agenda of today, we have prepared the flow of the session as follows. So we will keep our regular introductory information. I see many usual partners and suspects of our LGMA constituency in our call today, but there are some new names. In order to keep all of them on the same level, at this basic level, we will just take a couple of minutes. We will start to dig into the details of our agenda in Brazil and a couple of updates on the national mobilization. We will briefly touch upon the experience or the journey from Addis to New York in the last couple of weeks or the coming weeks. We will update on the action agenda. We hope to spend more time, but in the morning session, we were not able to do it in the right depth, let's say. But we want to talk about what's our plan for turning our vision to positions. And we will hear updates on the fourth urban climate ministerial as well as cities and regions hub in the blue zone of COP30 in Belém. I hope our colleague Leah would be able to join us. Probably she will be switching off from another call. As in short, the LGMA is, in short, the voice of subnationals, cities, towns, regions, and states in the UNESCO process since 1995, the first COP1. We are the official number is around 60, I guess, but we are also reaching out to a broader who are not necessarily have followed the UNFCCC's accreditation process. We basically try to influence the negotiations and try to make sure our voices are inserted in the decisions, our priorities are reflected. We contribute in setting the action agenda, how a multi-level action and urbanization can unfold in the action process, which is an agenda since Paris Agreement with the appointment of the high-level action champions and the Marrakesh Partnership that there follows. We try to support the presidency. Obviously, they have their own priorities, and we are trying to ensure that each of those annual initiatives or introduction of new concepts complement what we have been achieving or what we have been asking for over these years, and also complement our goals in terms of delivery of the Paris Agreement in the coming years as well. And to do all these, at the end of the day, we have to work with our parties because it's a party-driven process, which means the representatives from national governments, mostly the ministers, are the ones who signed ministers of environment or climate. They are the ones who sign all these agreements or decisions. So the delegations, we have to work with them, and the countries who are friendly with our agenda, we're exchanging ideas. Obviously, this list of friendly countries can change. The governments are also organic; they can change depending on time and depending on the choices of their national constituencies. Sometimes they may be positive, or sometimes they may be distant to our agendas. Um, we describe our evolution of our 30 plus years of our advocacy in four phases. In the first couple of years, we were, of course, enjoying the Earth Summit, Agenda 21, and we were recognized in the process, but we were not engaged in the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol like we were in the Agenda 21. So there was like a 10 years of a more relatively silence. When the UNFCCC have decided to rewrite or introduce a new climate regime by Copenhagen in 2009, we kicked off our local government climate roadmap, recognition, engagement, and empowerment of all levels of governments in the UNFCCC process. Copenhagen failed. We didn't give up. We continued to fight for. We even elevated our processes, so many new networks, so many new initiatives, and the response was very positive in the Paris Agreement preamble. We have ensured the recognition of importance of all levels of government in the climate process. This enabled us to explode in terms of our activities, results, and achievements. In particular, in Glasgow, we have introduced the concept of multi-level, again in the preamble, urgent need for multi-level action. And in Glasgow, in Dubai, paragraph 161, urgent parties for multi-level action and complementary initiative, complementary work on mitigation work program in Baku. This was supported by presence initiatives, especially SURD, CHAMP, and MAP, particularly designed for our needs and expectations and contributions, which is helping us. In addition to these webinars, you're also encouraged to subscribe to our bulletin, and that will also give you the chance that you can receive links, especially more detailed information about the topics we cover here. We have our website, LGMA home cities and regions.org, and this is not just a screenshot of the previous COPs since Paris, but we also have an expanded history or chronology of our work since 95 to the extent possible based on our archives effectiveness. Every year when we come to these conferences, we map what is our expectation, what is our inputs, and how we want to lead the national advocacy, but as well as the global governance, focusing on different elements depending on the priorities. And we were very happy that this has helped a lot to move the agenda, and we will like to continue this in the coming COP30, but with a differentiated approach. We will discuss this. When it comes to COP in 2 weeks in the blue zone, the negotiations restricted area, multi-level action urbanization pavilion is our home. We have been practicing this launch and pavilion since Copenhagen, but regularly in the blue zone since Glasgow. And in the last 3 years, we are also working with COP UN Habitat as the UN Agency for Cities and Urbanization. And every presidency we have been receiving so many good partnerships and collaboration, as well as many of the LGMA members, and that is giving us the chance that in the blue zone we can be safe in our messages and have our own dedicated space. But of course, we're interacting with the rest of the agendas in pavilions as well. We are going to Belém COP30. It is based on two things. One, to deliver the commitments announced in Dubai and Baku, especially on transition from fossil fuels as well as finance. And one of the points we are all, of course, concerned is that in both elements, which is finance and commitments, we are concerned or very worried about the backtracking or backlashing. Many countries are have a tendency to ignore or forget or weaken their commitments, and this is not helping us, especially when we are already living in a 1.5-degree heated world. Of course, our basic expectation is that the second big agenda of Belém is the the new national climate plans, the NDCs 3.0, and the hope is that it should not be below what do we have in terms of their ambition and effectiveness, and of course, urban component and the multi-level collaboration. So far, in the current analysis shows that we have still three-fourths of the countries who could then improve their NDCs in terms of their urban component and as well as multi-level collaboration, but it could also go worse. So there's no guarantee. So far, there is less than 30 NDCs submitted, and this is including the last 10 submitted in the last couple of weeks. There are rumors that there will be several announcements at the New York at the climate summit in next week. Well, let's hope, but we are talking about literally around 150 countries, and this is of course very concerning because this will guide our future roadmap. However, not having this delivered yet gives us the chance that we can also contribute still in the design, or for those who are available, that we can contribute in their implementation, mainly championing the idea of the role of the multi-level collaboration, as well as connecting urbanization and climate action agenda is our priority for this. And so far, by the July, we were seeing around 50% of those countries we were speaking positively about multi-level action or urban components, especially those who have been endorsing CHAMP. But obviously, the more countries are submitting, they are weakening. This figure is weakening. Let's hope, especially from CHAMP endorsing countries, that we have more ambitious and more prominent examples, good practices of multi-level NDCs. This we're talking about an annual process. As usual practice, starting from the sessions in Bonn, the leadership goes to the incoming presidency, and they are the ones who put more capacity, staff, and expectations, and documentation and consultations. But officially, until the first day of COP30, the full responsibility is on the shoulders of the Azerbaijan government as the COP29 presidency, where with both governments, Brazil and Azerbaijan, we are continuing very positive dialogues. In the case of Brazil, we are seeing so many new initiatives like ethical stocktake, leadership circles, and special envoys. Three of them are dedicated to urban and multi-level, and especially with Philip Young, we are interacting both in Brazil, but as well as in Bonn, New York, Malaysia, and Kuala Lumpur, and hopefully in New York and as well. But for others, I think we do not have too much dialogues yet, at least at the global level. We also are in touch with some of the regional advisors or regional envoys as well, and this is giving us the chance that we can communicate our messages. We are tracking three work streams: the global agendas, led by nations like G7, G20, the UNFCCC and UN fora. There are special procedures that we apply or follow, and our LGMA-led processes, and that is more the ones that we design the outcomes and we define the shape, and this is the moment where we consult in terms of the outcomes. June is an important moment. There we have been interacting for the first time in the most effective and most diversified delegation size and delegation portfolio. We welcome the Axis 4 and the stronger references to multi-level and urbanization, and we're aware that this is slightly influenced. The success in Belém is also slightly different influence with the logistics that is coming an issue. We are observing things are moving positively, but it is still a big challenge for many of our partners. Despite all these efforts, in June, we have announced our priorities that we will work at home to mobilize for multi-level action. We will contribute to negotiation agendas, and we will also prepare to build a new multi-level climate action governance. And that will very likely be one of the key legacies from Belém, considering the role that Brazilian government has done over these years in '92 and in 2012, and in connection to the ongoing UN reforms and the geopolitics that we are seeing carefully. Taking into account, we have now focused in a much more 100 days to go to COP. That was announced in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia. We are almost half of it now, less than 50 days is left. The good news that we are making progress in multiple fronts. We have ministerial meetings, we have consultations, we have regional climate weeks, we have our own initiatives. We just noticed that we have forgot to add Urban 20 here. That was also an important outcome last week. But the logic is that in every discussions, we are trying to raise our expectations towards the discussions in Belém and in Brazil. We will talk about it soon, about our full agenda in Belém or in Brazil for COP30. But we are aware, especially in October, we will still push a lot, be it in Geneva, be it in Delhi, and also in Tokyo, and our European town hall in Brussels will be a key factor. This is one of our newest slides that after these introductory remarks, we are now trying to understand what it looks like, the COP30 in Brazil. Brazil is very ambitious. They are mobilizing all the national resources and constituency and stakeholders. What is very clear that starting from October, mid-October, the attention will literally be in Brazil and different spaces and different locations and in different moments. It will start with the LGMA Brazil, and it will start with the pre-COP30 in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, the city which is seating all the government institutions. This is a tradition that there are 1 month before ministers hear and listen to each other in order to understand what could be the problematic issues of tension in blocking the consensus at the COP, and that they can then guide their negotiators and teams accordingly back in their capitals. Brazil is expanding this discussion. We now have heard just a couple of minutes ago the traditional two seats for constituents now is increased to 3, with a condition that 1 is reserved for Latin America. That is already something that we have already been proudly discussing, because the 2 seats we have for the first time proposed that it is reserved for Brazil, LGMA Brazil National Coordination Group. They have been one of the first pioneers of having a national group of under the LGMA brand, and they have already been meeting a lot. The 4th meeting was last week, and we are confident that they will be choosing their most appropriate representatives, very likely 1 from the cities and 1 from the states of the Brazil, which can change their seats or tickets accordingly or according to the agenda. And we want to reserve at least 1 seat for the global. Now, hearing that we will have a 3rd option, we may even increase the LGMA global seats. In addition to this, we're also aware that there are individual organizations, like if they are invited to this meeting, that is based on the reflection that Brazil wants to enlarge the debate of the climate action. So that is part of the demonstration of their inclusivity. So we would be happy to hear from our partners who have received this, so that we are aware of full LGMA delegation. In the beginning of November, we will be in Rio. Of course, this is not applying to all the negotiators, our constituency. This is we are proud to see that both COP30 presidency and Bloomberg Philanthropies is the lead partners of this process. Last webinar, we heard the latest discussions, and of course, in the past 3 weeks, there were updates, and then we are looking for momentarily the new announcements. We are aware there are plans for the agenda and invitations and outcome statement, or as well as the connection to the negotiations in Belém, be it the Leaders Summit or be it the COP30, knowing that many participants do not have the flexibility to reserve too much time in Brazil, so that probably many people will attend either Rio or Belém, and we are trying to navigate how we can make sure both events are complementary to each other and that they are under the big tent of the LGMA. In that regard, after the Local Leaders Forum, we are so happy that it is designed back to the Leaders Summit, COP30 Leaders Summit, heads of state level in Belém. So we're expecting a handful of our subnational leaders maybe invited to this summit, and they can interact with their heads of states. Over the weekend, there will be an intense agenda in Sao Paulo. There will be investment forum or private sector or business related events. Let's remember Sao Paulo, for former Sao Paulo Mayor Fernando Haddad is the current Minister of Finance of Brazil, and he has already been running a huge agenda. We hope this will also be a space for some national access to climate finance. Therefore, we hope we can also be part of it in this agenda. And obviously, these will also be overlapping with preparatory meetings in Belém. These are not officially events, most of them, but obviously, negotiators will not have the chance to be attending these preparatory meetings. Instead, they will be in Belém. And officially, starting from 10th of November, 2 weeks of the marathon of COP will kick off in Belém. And in that regard, our priorities, of course, the cities day on the first and second day, including the fourth urban and climate ministerial. Um, However, the COP continues, and particularly the second week will be the most important point, because the first week is where the negotiations under SBs will continue, and we expect that several things will not be concluded as usual practice, and those bodies, as constituted bodies, will finish their mandate, and then they will give the floor or authority will go to the presidency negotiator teams, and they will then design or restructure the negotiation groups and those who will facilitate this. The tendency, the usual practice, is that they should not introduce too many new topics, but they should try to build the bridging languages. Therefore, what will be discussed in the first week is extremely important to continue in the second week. And in that regard, of course, one of our biggest challenges is that while we're very happy to have at the beginning of COP, we have a strong agenda on cities and urbanization, there is a risk that we may not have the diversity and the number of ministers of climate in the room in that meeting. So we have to be innovative in making sure environment ministers are also still aware and involved in this process so that they can include this into their negotiated outcomes. While the negotiations, we will continue to engage as LGMA through our nominations, speakers. We will, of course, be having our hub, cities and regions hub. There will be more updates in the end of the slide. It's now shaping up in terms of its space and content. There will be, for the first time, an expanded action agenda zone with full 2 weeks of agendas and announcements, as well as other pavilions. As usual, just across the blue zone or very close to blue zone, there will be green zone, which means anyone in the city of Belém could access without necessarily UNFCCC badges. But this year, we are even more importantly engaged with the agenda in the city of Belém or even state of Pará or state of Amapá. This is in line with the expectation of President Lula and the whole Brazilian government and partners to call the nations that they do not come only to see the blue zone or engage in the blue zone, but what it looks like to live in an urban settlement in Amazon, what it looks like, the challenges of in the global south or in the cities who are facing both disasters, threats, but also the opportunities of living harmony with nature and introducing new innovative ideas. So we will really encourage, especially this year, delegations to reserve at least half day of their presence or as appropriate timing so that they can connect to these activities in the city, across the city. I see this will be a combination of Belém, Barcarena, Para, and Amapa, but we hope to have more updates on that. I see my colleague Bianca in the call today. In the morning, obviously, we could not have her. Bianca, do you want to share any immediate, let's say, highlights, hints about what to expect in these 2 weeks in the city and the region as part of the LGMA Brazil's preparations as well?
Yes, Yunus. Hello, everyone. Good morning from Brazil. Nice to be here again in another LGMA monthly meeting. And yes, as Yunus was mentioning, this year I think that we'll have a huge mobilization on the ground in Belém. And besides of the blue and the green zone, we are seeing many, let's say, independent initiatives and houses being installed in Belém, like thematic houses. We here in South America have mapped some of them. I can put it in a chat. And of course, I will just mention these independent houses, but each of those have their own methodologies for submissions of events or even participation or entrance. So we encourage everyone who wants to search about how to engage with them, because the process might be slightly different. But as far as we know, we have an ABEMA house, which is a state government of Brazil, IP House, Global South House, AgriZone House, City House, Amazonia Station House, Amazonian Climate Hub, House of Amazonia, Insurance House, Amazon Museum by CAF, the Subnational Bank, Climate Action House, BNDS House, NGO House, and TED Countdown House. These are the ones that in ICLEI South America we have mapped so far, but I'm sure that there are many others that we are not we have not noted yet or not listed yet. So it's just for frame for you all of the other initiatives outside of the blue zone and the green zone that are being placed during the days of COP. So, reinforcing what Eunice were saying, we encourage everyone to reserve some days to get to know the city of Belém and walk around all of these thematic houses that will be installed, and also, of course, the cities on their round, as it's mentioned on the slide, the state of Pará, City Hall of Belém. There are neighbor cities like Barcarena that are also, let's say, providing site visits, events on the site in other cities that are nearby Belém. So, of course, as far as we have all of this information more structured and finalized, we are happy to share with the LGMA Global Group for so everyone can have the chance to program their selves to visit these houses and in cities around. But I think that the clear message here is that everyone should be aware that this will be a very inclusive COP, and there will be COP happening around the whole city of Belém and not only on the blue zone and green zone. So this is good because help us also to deal with the badges issues, so for the blue zone. So I think that the main message is that it's going to be a very inclusive COP, even though people is not necessarily inside the blue zone. I can put here in the chat all of
Yeah,
these houses that I've listed, but again, reinforcing that is not the final list, and
yeah,
maybe there are too many others.
yeah.
I think that's it, Yunus, the message.
Thanks, Bianca. And of course, this was the first exercise, and we will continue on our next steps in the in September, especially the LGMA bulletin and the LGMA website. We will try to make sure they are also prominently visible, so that those who would like to know more about Belém should go to the LGMA as the source of information. So let's work on that. It was the first exercise, but definitely will not be the last. A couple of additional points about how we are preparing. That we are making an impressive demonstration of national mobilization. Obviously, we have been working on the town hall COPs, and then we have been hearing that around more than 30 town hall COPs are being held in across the world and connecting all climate action at all levels. But some are really demonstrating the power of multi-level collaboration. In South Africa, we are seeing with the Ministry of Environment how they are working through SALGA, the National Association. In Malaysia, we are working with the Ministry of Housing together with the city of Kuala Lumpur, as we have seen in ASEAN Forum. And in the case of Kiribati, we have worked with KILGA and Commonwealth Local Government Forum to make sure that President of Kiribati speaks about the discussions on the local action and the value of connecting all together to this response. And I think this is the demonstration that we can change the narrative, that it is a whole of society and whole of government approach. More importantly, we are seeing more and more countries joining. The two new endorsers of CHAMP, Sweden and Bolivia, that was announced last month, and this will also hope that the demonstration of these kind of processes can now feed into the NDCs and through other processes as well. In particular, on the Kuala Lumpur Town Hall COP, we discussed this. We are now informed that ASEAN ministers of urbanization, together with China, have endorsed Kuala Lumpur call to action, which has included so many strong paragraphs, which is very much in line with the LGMA expectations, the LGMA vision, but as well as also the call for a more lasting legacy from the COP30 in Belém. I think this is now in the hands of the UN Habitat, because the Minister of Urbanization Minister of Housing of Malaysia is also at the same time the Habitat president, and Philip Yang, who was the special envoy for urban solutions, are also with us there in Kuala Lumpur, which means that I think in the next couple of weeks we will have more updates on how this is being now spread as a wave of, or creating a new momentum, both in towards Belém, but also at the national level. And we would look forward to some good examples as well. We announced that we will be aggressively engaged in Africa Climate Summit and the Climate Week in Addis Ababa this year. I'm not sure whether my colleague Kate is in the call today, because she was leading our delegation of LGMA together with Ula. Unfortunately, I have been informed that Ula is a bit on a sick leave, so we wish her the best of speedy recovery on her way back from Addis. She was a bit feeling unwell, so we kept her safe in this call. But if not, we will be keeping the discussions. There are so many good interactions, political leaders, as well as dialogues and the negotiation and mandated events like mitigation, like just transition. So it was a powerful encounter, as well as the the discussions on the way to prepare the COP30 outcomes was also powerful. Let's continue in terms of that we are now prepared for Climate Week New York City. It is the moment where UN General Assembly is convening annually at the heads of state level during the high level week. This year it's particular because it's the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. However, due to the domestic and international approach, or the Trump administration's approach to global sustainable efforts and some of the intergovernmental processes, is creating some difficulties and challenges, and creating some concerns over the inclusivity of this year's Climate Week. We are observing even some events are being canceled, and some partners are not making their presence there, but still we believe this will still be an opportunity to communicate many messages. The other important point is that this is not led by UNFCCC, so it's the UN Secretary General's office, it's the other partners, so each of them have their own communication channels that they do not necessarily have to go through LGMA as the entry door. In that regard, we know there will be a huge delegation, and there's some meetings like climate mayors of the US or under two ministerial meeting will be held, but there will be so many thematic sessions, and COP30 presidencies also will be announcing several high-level announcements, but also some closed-door meetings and bilaterals, also the UN Secretary General's office. Therefore, we recommend you to track individual agendas, and we will also make sure that our messages about COP30 is also being presented, and this will be the discussion we will have shortly. Not actually a discussion, but it's more like an update on the progress. The UNAT is also important because it will be the implementation of the Pact for the Future. But since the Trump administration's announcement of decreasing of 90% of the US funding to UN, there is also the in parallel processes on saving the financial stability, but also in making integrity of the institutional diversity and complexity of the UN system. So that is now a combination. UN Secretary General has announced some efforts, and now officially United Nations diplomats will be convening through an informal ad hoc group, which will continue until March 2026. The most important logic is that this is also connected to our work and the Pact for the Future. We had Action 55E, which mandated the UN Secretary General to make an assessment of the options of increasing engagement opportunities of local and regional governments. This report is released by the 8th of July, and now we are eager to see how this will be taken up by parties, by the member states of the UN. One of the challenges is that last year, or the UN Habitat Assembly's input to the UN General Assembly is in a every 2 years process, because they are also running the assembly every 4 years. Because of this previously managed process, this year, in the year when UN reforms will be discussed, there is no direct agenda for UN Habitat, which is a pity, which is really a bad coincidence, let's say. Therefore, we still believe the continuity of this Article 55E can still be considered under this UN 80 reform ad hoc group, because in the UN General Assembly 79th session, they were presented as an agenda item 123, which is strengthening of the United Nations. So even if there is no UN Habitat agenda in the UN General Assembly this year, because of this connection, we may expect that the new coming board or the new coming consultative group of diplomats may still be encouraged to discuss the outcome and the proposals contained in this report. We're coming to the action agenda discussions. The good news that after our webinar last month, the presidency has launched officially this action agenda. There was a webinar and the website is updated. There are several list of initiatives announced. The process is open, and these 30 activation groups have their own secretariats. In order to be part of this process, you should register an initiative first to indicate to them, communicate through their platforms, but also to register this in the NASCA platform. And that over these weeks, there are already ongoing processes. Several LGMA partners are there. Very likely a key announcement will come in New York, and that there will be the final deliverables, which is primarily granular of solutions, including both current past practices, but as well as ideas and projects for acceleration. So let's see how these will evolve, how this could then complement the negotiation agenda, especially with the vision that the presidency wants to make the connection between global stocktake and the action agenda. When we were in this discussions, we have communicated our response as a LGMA to the presidency and the high-level champions and Marrakesh partnership team, which is opening this 5 years plan. It's in the making. We have shared in a 2-page document, first of all, our frank assessment of what we achieved and what we were disappointed or frustrated over these 10 years, but more importantly, in a constructive manner, what we would like to see in the future. 3 basic points. We want a year-round engagement, not just focusing on the COP, and it should be connected to the NDCs 3.0 if we want to make an impact. Second, it should be the subnational engagement. We are very happy to see that there is a vision for a dedicated engagement for subnational, which was not the case in the Marrakesh partnership before. But we want this to go through LGMA, because otherwise we will create duplicity, and the legitimacy and effectiveness should be taken into account in this processes. And finally, yes, every year presidencies are receiving consultancy services, they are receiving updates, and they are enjoying some of the fundraising, but the real actors on the ground, the leaders of this or partners of these initiatives are still relying on their voluntary funds or struggling with their challenges. So we really would wish that this process now mobilizes new technical and financial support. This brings us now what we want to bring to the position. As I said, we were hoping to reserve more time, but in a 1 hour time, we are still restricted. But we just had our discussions yesterday with our drafting committee. First of all, we appreciate all the contributions from the LGMA partners who provided inputs to those working groups on different themes. The good news that except a few, we received input for all the topics. However, we're aware there are certain prioritization that has to come up, and this really has to be visible both in New York and also in our launch of the position paper. In that regard, our latest assessment is that we also have to take into account some of the latest updates on the COP30 Local Leaders Forum, because it is a COP30-led process. Our tendency at the moment is that by or before the 24th September, we make a 2 or 3 page summary, a very high-level executive summary, which focuses on three main asks. One, what is our vision for the legacy of urban and multi-level action as from the COP30 negotiated outcomes? This is connected to the also to be discussed with in connection to the upcoming IPCC special report on cities, which will be discussed in COP32 in Africa in 2027. Second, there are specific negotiations on finance, adaptation, and just transition that we have already developed a lot of powerful messages, which was communicated already. We could give a more prioritization of these topics. And then third, that we announce officially that we are ready to build this new global governance, and our constituency is already aware of these initiatives that we've said, the convergence of the environmental agreements, convergence among UN institutions and processes. That kind of a reference could be the big messages. We would expect, or we would prepare ourselves that detailed texts of these key proposals would be available for publicly and for open for endorsement by our bulletin, LGMA bulletin, on the 30th of September. And then it would be endorsement for the LGMA partners. Meanwhile, there are some topics that we were not fully confident in terms of its content, topics like food, topics like relation with indigenous people that we are not very clear yet. This could even come back in the second wave before the pre-COP30 on 13 and 14 of October. And finally, especially with our political vision for a new global multi-level climate governance, could be also discussed or developed more in detail at the COP30 local leaders outcome statement, which will be announced in Rio, so that we make sure that we plan for all these documents in their right audience and target groups, and that it is endorsed and disseminated appropriately. Meanwhile, we are also aware this year, after all these interactions, this is a list of our interactions inside the UNFCCC, that we have documents and text on multi-level governance, we have text on urbanization and mitigation, we have text on local adaptation, and we even have text on climate finance and cities. It's very clear that we're not starting from scratch. We're not at point zero. Very likely, the message should be that this initiative or this legacy from COP30 should now consolidate in a systematic way and connect it to the NDC process and make sure that it is discussed in a more holistic way rather than individual negotiating bodies, so that there is a standalone agenda items, there is a standalone interaction of ministers of climate with ministers of urbanization and our LGMA constituency. Let's hope this would be type of the key message we would convey, and that it will be resonated by the parties. These two slides were reserved for Leah. I'm not sure she's online together with us today now. She was with us in the morning, but it may be possible that she may have some conflicting agendas. Do I see Leah?
No, Leah's not
No.
with us. Nope.
But in essence, the ministerial meeting on urban and climate ministerial is going well, advancing on 11th, and with some agendas on the 10th. It will focus on 4 roundtables and with a closing plenary where LGMA engagement is foreseen in all. That's the reason why we have launched and updated our tracking sheet, that there is a specific sheet where you can start entering the leader that you expect to be present in person in Belém. We know we have to coordinate with Rio, but we are also aware now things have to be now clear. The good news, the delegation quotas, each NGO quotas is now assigned by the UNFCCC Secretariat, so we also know how many people we can mobilize. This clarification is even helping to sort out some of the logistical challenges and accommodation demands, because we know many delegations are shrinked in terms of their quotas, which is expected. So the key message is that we have to start planning day by day presence and which speaker, which leader can be assigned to which topic. And this year we're also aware UN Habitat is prepared together with Minister of Cities to finish this ministerial with a declaration on the new urban agenda and UNFCCC, which is a spillover effect from the Kuala Lumpur call to action that we have worked together. This means that we will have a LGMA position paper with the nitty-gritty details of all negotiation topics. We will have a powerful political statement from Rio on our vision beyond Belém for global governance. And we have the ministers of urbanization or their communities' vision how to connect the urban agenda to the UN climate action. This means that we have powerful but differentiated ownership and content. So obviously a commitment from a local leader should not be the same as a minister or a UN body, but the essence is that they are all converging, that we are in the same direction, that we are going from local to global, COP30 and beyond. In that final point of today's slides, and then I will be more than happy to invite colleagues to participate in terms of their inputs, is that we are advancing with our house in the home in the Blue Zone, Cities and Regions Hub. The deadline of today is now expanded. This is the moment where you can express your interest to reserve your slot, 1 hour slots, and contribute in this financial stability of this initiative, because it's costly, as we would all remember. We would make sure there is a certain harmony with all the sessions, and the outcome of feeding to our action agenda and the negotiations as well. With this, I'd like to announce that at least our presentation for today is over, which is now already 45 minutes gone, and we have 15 more minutes. I see in this call a couple of colleagues, especially from the LGMA COP30 negotiation position drafting committees. It would be good if they would like to contribute. I also see Ariel, who is leading our work in terms of the consolidation and formulating the high-level messages and executive summaries. In case you'd like to contribute, feel free to raise your hands. And other colleagues, if you do have any updates, that is any points that we have missed, feel free to come in as well. And many thanks. I see in the chat box some partners. Berat Bey, my colleague from Turkey, has also shared his expression of acknowledgement. Thanks. Our colleague from Balkis Khan from Pakistan has shared his links, and Johanna has shared the link for our pavilion or hub where you can enter your information. Heloise has announced availability of one of their members for the Leaders Summit. Let's see how this process will evolve. And Steve Patterson, mayor of Athens, Ohio, and in fact, we were delighted to have Mayor Patterson's very powerful message to the daring cities in June. At that time, he was not able to join us in person because he had to move back to his country after a couple of intense days with North Rhine-Westphalia Academy of International Sciences. But through the National League of Cities, we have received so many powerful messages. And I know during Climate Week, together with the US, National League of Cities are also planning for additional agendas. Mayor Patterson, in case you would like to share any verbal updates from your side and see your message of solidarity in the chat box, it's really a great honor for us to have you joining us. Ariel, would you like to come in on the points that you'd like to compliment?
Well, first off, thanks for having me.
Mayor Patterson, perfect. Please go ahead, Mayor Patterson.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for letting me join. I am right now in Missouri in the United States, but I have been traveling internationally. I'm deeply invested in the work that we're doing, in particular in my city, but also with the National League of Cities when it comes to climate change, resilience, and sustainability. I will be at C40 in Rio de Janeiro. So just know that I'm an ally and trying to work really hard, especially now with the National League of Cities under my leadership, taking more of an international position on things where we have not done that necessarily in the past. But I will be at the Climate Week in New York
Excellent.
City. So if you see me around, please, reach out to me, and let's continue to engage.
Excellent, excellent. So good to hear this, and Mayor Patterson, is particularly your personal presence and your personal commitment. Indeed, in New York, Climate Week, ICLE US is together with America All In and other partners will have a couple of encounters. As I said, climate mayors meeting is also happening. We know there is an evolution of the governance of the advocacy and action partnership in the American cities and states, and ICLE US will continue to play a role. And it is so good to have you in Rio, because we know some cities are challenging because of the election in their territories. So it's good to have your presence there. And we know some US mayors will also be with us in Belém. In particular, I think there will be some announcements coming from ICLE US as well, as particularly on some new strengthening partnerships. So there is, as far as I remember, on the 24th, a big tent coalition meeting. My colleagues can share with you the ICLE US calendar of events in New York Climate Weekend. We have the president of ICLE, Mayor Kachin Jame, will be joining us, and along with other leaders from Adelaide and South America. So it's a great opportunity to have you on board. We need more and more this cross-fertilization of our efforts. Pata just shared the ICLE website, ICLE US website on the Climate Week, and we will make sure that we continue. And especially, I remember your commitment to roll the town hall COPs was very, very promising and encouraging. And I know city of Hastings on Hudson will have their town hall COP on the 21st of September. So and it will be followed by a number of others. So let's make sure that we enrich our discussions and bring the strong voice of the US cities, counties, and states. We still have 8 more minutes to go, and I see Andrew Potts from New York, is a great colleague of the LGMA, and also based in New York. So he's also welcoming Mayor Patterson. That's so good to see. Indeed, especially with Climate Heritage Network, we are working on the culture chapter, and there is a very interesting initiative between ICLE US and ICLE Africa on culture-based climate action, where we have a lot of US cities involved as well. I know these days every minute is valuable. If there is no burning input or update from our partners, we are always happy to give you back your couple of seconds and minutes so that we can close that round earlier. I just want to check whether anything, Bianca, would you like to add? I see, for example, Heloise and Rachel from subnational community who will be present, I assume, in New York. Quebec will continue to take our leadership in a number of processes. Under 2 will have their ministerial meeting. Oliver, yes, last month we were hearing your support to the states of the Brazilians. I hope, Bianca, you are connected in the LGMA work. Oliver is now advising to the Brazilian states, but it will be good to make sure that you are part of the national consultations. That's what I can immediately share with you along these lines. And the rest, I think, we can claim that this session is now Abema House on Biodiversity and Climate. Bianca, I'm not sure whether it was included in your list, but let's make sure that Abema House will be also one of those. Yes, Abema was, in fact, alphabetically, this was the first in the list that Bianca shared. But for the COP30 cities and regions hub, as well as the LGMA in the COP30, we will make sure by the time we release our bulletin, the September bulletin, the LGMA website will also be making its basic structure, which will have this year which has not been the case in the past 3 or 4 COPs, that there will be strong vision of the engagement in the city of Belém, city of Barcarena, state of Para, and state of Apama, Amapa. Sorry for my typos and language with the Portuguese, but I assume you would be accommodating this, and I hope to be better when I am, if I am, and when I am back in Belém. I enjoyed 2 years ago to visit Belém. It was the first that I've ever seen that starts to prepare a COP 2 years ago, and I'm sure they will make an excellent hospitality and welcoming. Rachel is saying that all good, and look forward to meeting with all the Climate Week colleagues in New York. I think with that, we can comfortably say that 5 minutes is back to all the participants. Many thanks for all your updates and engagement. Stay tuned for additional discussions and updates. Hopefully also improved Brazilian accent as well as Oliver mentioned in the chat box. Take care. Bye bye.